Hello everyone, thank you for checking out my video today. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chris. We talk all about koi ponds and water gardens and just about everything that goes along with it here. I have a ton of videos here on the channel. I've been building ponds professionally now for over 25 years. So I put together this channel and all these videos basically to help share with you some of the things that I've learned over the years. And hopefully I can answer some questions and make your pond keeping experiences a little bit better, a little bit more enjoyable. So please take some time, take a look around. I have videos here of everything from pond design, construction, to filter systems, to maintenance. We look at different types of fish. We look at different water plants, and then everything in between that goes with it. All different bottom drains, skimmers, pumps, filters, UV lights, the whole bit. So take some time. You can use the playlists here on the channel to find your way around, as I have all the videos broken down into different categories there. So hopefully you can find something that can answer some questions and help you out. So today's video, we're doing something a little bit different here. I just want to talk about basically having a small pond with either too many fish or big fish, and what are some of the problems that may arise in this situation. So this is a pretty common thing. I see it a lot, and unfortunately it's often because I get phone calls from people that have problems. Sometimes, the landscapers build their ponds and, they can build it and make it look nice, but they really don't know anything about the filtration systems. They don't know how to maintain it. Or if, there are problems with the pond and they call the landscapers back, the landscapers obviously don't know how to fix it if they didn't know how to build the pond correctly in the first place. So I get a lot of phone calls like that, and often it's about fish that are sick or dying or some kind of situation like that. And many times I will go to the house and I will see that it's a small pond with either really big fish or a lot of little fish, okay? And then there's problems that can arise from this. So the first thing you need to know is that the smaller the pond is, the more unstable the system is, the more susceptible it is to rapid changes, be it in water temperature, water chemistry, right? Things like the pH can go off quickly, the ammonia levels can spike rather quickly. Anything in a smaller pond can develop into a major problem quicker. Now, a larger pond is definitely going to be more stable. However, in a larger pond with more water, more volume, sometimes treatments can be more costly and take longer to take effect. Okay, so there's pluses and minuses here. But in general, if you stay on top of your pond's water chemistry, basically by testing the water periodically for your pH, your ammonia, nitrate levels, all that kind of stuff, stay ahead of the game. It's going to make your life better, easier down the road. But getting back to this, big fish, little pond scenario, what tends to happen, I see this with my clients too. When I build a new pond, let's just say, okay, it's a 1,000-gallon pond, just to keep things, in perspective here. Not too small, not too big. We build the brand new pond, and we want to go out and buy fish, right? So the homeowners get in the car, run down to the store, and the wife and husband pick out a couple fish, and then each kid pick out a couple fish of their own. So sometimes maybe they'll come home with 10, 12 fish, whether it's all koi or all goldfish or a combination thereof, whatever, right? But generally speaking, to start off, you're not going to go out and just buy like, you know, $1,000 koi or something, right? You're probably going to start off with some smaller fish, maybe 4, 5, 6 inches, something like that. So you go out, you buy, say, 10, 12 fish, whatever. You come home, you put them in the pond, and it looks like there's nothing there, right? You have this whole pond, and there's like a few little fish down, you know, down here on the bottom swimming around. It doesn't add a lot of life into the pond right away, right? It seems like, you know, there's not that much there. So the tendency I find is that people then, you know, a week or so later end up back at the store buying more. Because it just, you know, they don't seem like they have a lot of fish, right? So they go buy more. And now maybe they have, you know, 20 fish in the pond or something. And okay, you know, it's got a little more life. Well, here's the thing. These fish are going to grow, all right? So we really have to take in account what our bioload, what our, you know, fish mass is going to be, so to speak, in a couple years from now. So goldfish multiply like weeds, all right? So I have clients that maybe started off with, you know, 10, 20 goldfish and now have like 200 goldfish a few years later, okay? They multiply like weeds. Koi do not lay their eggs until they get much larger. Koi have to mature first before they're old enough to lay their eggs, and you know, usually somewhere 12, 14 inches, something like that. Like the koi's got to be a decent size before they'll start laying their eggs and multiplying. So koi, we have time, but goldfish will start multiplying like weeds. However, koi are going to grow much bigger. So just be aware that if you have a pond that's 300 gallons, maybe you don't want to go out and buy, you know, 10 koi, even if they're this big. Because in a couple years, they're going to be this big. In a few more years, they're going to be this big. In a couple more years, they're going to be this big, okay? And at that point, we've got issues. So I do have a few clients that have a small little pond. I'm thinking of one in particular that has 3 koi in it. Now the pond is probably not even 200 gallons, okay? It's a small little pond, maybe 5 foot by 4 foot, something like that. And it's not that deep. It's maybe 18 inches or so deep. And he's got 3 koi in there. 2 of them are a good 15 inches, and the other one's maybe 10, 12 inches. The concern is, one, in the winter time, when the pond freezes and ices over, you know, we have to keep a heater in there so that it doesn't freeze, because the fish are not going to have a lot of room underneath that ice. The other issue is we're not giving these fish adequate space to exercise. Swim around, okay? Use their muscles. Just like people, right? The more we move around, the more we exercise, generally the healthier we are. And I have to really feel that the fish are going to be very similar, right? You don't want to live in a closet your whole life. So what tends to happen, whether you have big fish in a little pond or a lot of fish in a little pond, is over time, Mother Nature takes its course. Mother Nature takes control. So what I mean by that is, eventually, you're going to run into problems where your fish start dying. Larger fish may develop like spinal issues, and their spines might get twisted and they get all kind of contorted. Smaller fish, disease sets in, okay? You might end up with, whether it's a parasite infection or a bacterial infection, that wipes out half the pond, all right? It just seems that when I run into ponds that have a lot of fish or a small pond with, really big fish, that eventually problems start arising. So it's just Mother Nature, right? As I said, if you got a big fish in a little pond, you're not giving those fish adequate room to swim and grow. Now, there's a saying out there that I can't stand, all right? And that's, oh, I heard that fish only grow to the size of their environment. And then I add, yeah, and then they die. Okay? So what I mean by that is, if you have a koi, the koi wants to grow. I mean, you can buy koi 30 inches and up. All right? A koi wants to get big. If you keep that little fish, in a fish tank, and yeah, it's only going to grow to the size of its environment. But if the fish naturally wants to grow, just say 30 inches long, and you're keeping it in a tank that's only going to allow it to grow 10, 12 inches, it's just going to get sick and die, all right? I mean, it's going to grow according to how much you feed it. You keep feeding it, it's going to keep wanting to grow. But it's going to get sick. Things are going to happen, right? Because it's not natural. So if you're going to buy koi, make sure your pond is big enough to sustain it, all right? Not only your koi, but your water plants and the whole environment as well. Too many times I see small ponds and people want to stuff it with water lilies. They want to put, all kinds of fish in there. And then everything just gets overgrown, really dirty, becomes a mess. Fish get sick. It's just, right? Really think about what we're doing here, all right? Now, if you just have a small space and you don't have, a lot of room to build a bigger pond, or, simply it comes down to budget, right? We can't afford to put in a big pond and buy all these big expensive fish. I mean, that's totally fine. But just realize that if the pond is smaller, everything has to be scaled down with it, okay? And that's really just gonna keep everything nice and healthy. If you have a, 200-gallon little pond, well, maybe we should just have a couple little goldfish in it. And they're going to be fine, and they're going to thrive, and they'll do well. But don't buy a dozen koi, okay? Now, as I said, especially with ponds that are overstocked with fish, we have a lot of issues. So overstocked can not only mean too many fish, but too many big fish, okay? Other things can happen. Keep in mind that a pond with a lot of fish or big fish is going to have a high oxygen demand. Now, this is a major issue, especially in the summer, in the warmer months when the water temperature is warm, because warm water holds less dissolved oxygen than cold water does. So the warmer the water, the more oxygen we need to provide the fish. Not only does the water hold less oxygen, but also in the summer, the fish, their metabolism is in full force. It's when they're going to be consuming the most oxygen. So we need to make sure that that oxygen level stays very high in the pond. Now, summertime, we get thunderstorms. Sometimes the power goes out. If you don't have a backup generator, a battery backup system, something like this on your pond to keep the pond aerated, an air pump running continuously, your fish are going to die. The more fish you have, the bigger the fish you have, the quicker there's going to be death in the pond if the power goes out. Now, I share with you a little story. I have a lady, a client of mine who I didn't build the pond. I just help her out. I open and close it for her. She's an older woman. She's had this pond for probably 25, 30 years. It's a small pond. It's maybe 5 foot by 6 foot something. And she has 7 large koi, okay, big koi in that pond. They've been in there for 25 years, all right? They were her husband's fish. Unfortunately, her husband passed away several years ago. But she keeps that pond because, you know, she knew that he loved those fish. And they've had them forever. They're her pets. Well, one day last summer, one morning, I got a phone call. We had a thunderstorm the night before. Her power went out. She went out in the morning to feed the fish, and they're all dead. All right? Really sad. All right, I had to go over there and scoop them all out and bury them for her. You know, unfortunately, big fish, little pond. This is something else that can happen. I often run into situations where the ponds are overstocked with fish. You know, like I said, I have clients that went out and they bought, you know, 20 goldfish when they started the pond. And now they have 200 or 300 of them in the pond. You know, not only is it going to cost you a fortune to keep all these fish fed, but it's just too many fish. There's going to be a very heavy bioload in that pond, which means the ammonia levels can be sky high if we don't have the proper filtration system to support that. Now, if the ammonia levels start going up, fish are going to start dying, and it doesn't take long, okay? So then I often get questions from people as to what can I do with all these fish? How do I get rid of them? I gotta thin the herd, so to speak. I have too many fish in here. And that becomes an issue. Now, sometimes people, you know, say, well, maybe I'll sell them. You know, I got all these koi, and they've got to be worth a fortune. I can probably get $1,000 a piece for them. No, you won't, okay? They're only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for them. It's a lot of work to come over to the house to catch them. Maybe you got to drain, you know, 3/4 of the water out of the pond to catch the fish. Then you got to bag them up. You got to box them. Sometimes you got to put oxygen in the bags. You got to transport them. It's a lot of work. It's not something that people are just going to come pay you thousands of dollars for your fish and take them away. It ain't going to happen, all right, for the most part. Some people may pay a lot of money if you have something special. But for just, you know, some basic koi here and there, you're probably not going to get as much for them as you think. My suggestion is sometimes try a local pawn shop, a pawn store, something that may be willing to take them from you, okay? Yes, they'll sell them. Maybe they'll pay you a little bit for them, but, you know, what you don't want to do is take those fish and dump them into a natural pond or natural lake around your house. That's really not recommended to do. Maybe if you have friends that you want, you know, want some extra fish, you can give it to them. Here's the problem. All right, and I have a whole nother video here all about all this stuff too, but whenever you are taking fish from one pond and giving them to somebody else or whatever, no matter how healthy you think your pond and your fish are, there's always a chance you're going to introduce something to somebody else's pond and it can kill their other fish. All right? Even if you look at your fish and it looks clean, there's no spots, there's nothing, no sores, no redness on them, and the fish looks healthy and happy, you never know what you're bringing with it, okay? Now, a little example, I don't mean to go off, but a little example is my wife's a teacher. Every September, all these kids start school again, all right? They're all in school. They're all healthy. They all look fine. They're all in class. And then a couple weeks later, kids start dropping like flies. They start getting sick. Because whatever pathogens that we carry along with us may not affect us. Our bodies may be immune to it, but maybe something I'm carrying that you don't have that you're going to be susceptible to, and somehow it spreads to you, right? So, and you get sick. So things like that happen. And it can be the same thing in ponds. You never know what you're bringing, you know, with you. I have clients that say, oh, I took my son fishing the other day. We caught a nice bass. We brought him home and threw him in our pond. And I go, oh no, Don't do that. All right, especially in a natural pond, a natural lake, where there's no water treatment, there's nothing going on, no salt, there's nothing. You don't know what you're bringing in with that, and where that fish is digging in the mud and in the muck, looking for worms and stuff. That's where all the different parasites and bacteria grow. All right, thrive. You don't know what you're bringing in with it. All right, so I don't mean to go off here, but it's all kind of related. Big fish in a little pond, or a lot of fish in a little pond, can run into many problems down the road. So always keep that in mind. I know it's hard when you first start a pond and you're excited and you want to go buy all kinds of fish. Yeah, I mean, I get it. But keep in mind, buy the fish that are going to survive in your pond. Don't buy big koi if you have a 200-gallon pond. Koi are going to need a bigger environment. They're going to need a lot more space. They're going to grow big. You can't keep them this big. They're not going to live long. A large koi, like I said, wants to grow 30 inches plus. You can't keep it at a foot. All right? They're not going to live 50, 60 years like they may normally live. If they're in a suitable environment, they may only last 10 years. Things happen. Mother Nature takes its course. Diseases set in. Things happen. Just think about yourself. If you had to live in a closet your whole life, how healthy would you be? And how long would you live? Are you going to live 80, 90 years in a closet? Maybe not. All right? So same thing with the fish. All right, so let me wrap up here. I hope the video kind of helped you out a little bit, gave you a little few insights anyway. It's all based on my experience over the years and things that I've seen. It's, you have a nice healthy pond with a good filter system and a decent amount of fish, a nice equal balance between your fish, the size of the pond, the plants, the whole bit. You have such a much higher rate of success of keeping everything happy and healthy. All right, so thank you very much for watching. I hope the video helped you a little bit. If you enjoy all this stuff, please take some time. I have a ton of videos here on my channel. I really appreciate all your support. You can check out my website as well, called www.pondscapesandmore.com. So I have a ton of videos, a lot of pictures on there, things I've done in the past, as well as some products that I use quite often, some recommendations there, and even some information on feeding and attracting wild birds to your backyard. So that's a fun thing too. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you back again with another video. Take care. Bye.